Hello and welcome to Lesson 17. This is the first of two lessons which look at why you should not use double negatives. Now this is of course grammar basics. Everyone knows you shouldn't use double negatives in English. So why am I doing two lessons on this? Well, the reason is because native speakers break this rule all of the time, and non-natives do as well. Now, this isn't because they don't know the rules. Everyone knows you can't have double negatives in English. But sometimes when you're trying to communicate something in a complex way, sometimes you make the mistake of using double negatives or triple negatives or quadruple negatives. So these two lessons will look at how you create double negatives, sometimes by accident, and then if you can spot them, you can avoid them. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing to say is using a double negative is a grammar mistake in English. If you haven't understood that message yet, make sure you're aware of it now. Now, I know in other languages, double negatives are absolutely fine. For example, in Polish, double negatives, okay. But in English, it is not. Now, a double negative is the situation where you have two negative forms in one part of the sentence, and that the negative forms are normally one negative verb and one negative word. Okay, so if you have a sentence and that sentence is divided into two clauses, and in one of those clauses you have a negative verb and a negative word, the chances are you've got a double negative. Now, the main problem with double negatives is not only are they a grammar mistake, but the main problem is the problem the reader has when they try to read and understand a double negative form. Do readers think, okay, this is one negative and another negative, and they think, as in maths, that the negatives cancel each other out? Or does the reader think, well, actually, I think this is a mistake, but the writer meant to say this? So the reader then has to make a decision that they shouldn't have to make. They have to make a decision, what is the writer really trying to say? And of course, when we are writing clearly, we should never put the reader in a situation where they have to decide what we as writers are trying to say. So, for example, classic example, you do not know nothing. So we've got a negative form, which is do not, and we've got a negative adverb, which is nothing. So here we've got a double negative. This, of course, should be you do not know anything. Okay, so here are the teaching tips. Obviously, don't use double negatives. Why? Okay, it's a grammar mistake, but this isn't the most important thing. The most important thing is that we're asking the reader to try and work out what's going on. We're asking the reader to do our job as writers. And of course, the problem with that is not only will the reader be frustrated because they have to make decisions that they don't have to make, but they also might make the wrong decision and understand the text in a different way to the way we want the reader to understand the text. In other words, your text will become confusing, and as writers, particularly in the legal world or business world, this is not something that we want, obviously. The other thing you have to be aware of is that sometimes spell checkers, for example on Microsoft Word, sometimes they will find them, sometimes they won't. So it really is down to you as the writer to be able to read your writing, identify those double negatives, and then change them. So it's time for some questions. So below you will see some sentences, and I'd like you to rewrite those sentences to remove the problem with the negative structures. Now, as an example question, well, let's have a look at that example we've seen already. You do not know nothing could be you do not know anything, or you do know nothing. Okay, so two potential rewrites, both of them grammatically correct because they solve the problem of the double negative. Now this was a simple example. Below you're going to see more complicated double negative faults. So think carefully about what the writer is trying to say, or what you think the writer is trying to say, and then redraft the sentence carefully. Once you've done that, have a look at my suggested answers video. Good luck!